G'day. Nathan
Morning.
and Brett here from SEQH. This morning, Brett's posed a question to me, which is, what happens if the freight forwarder incorrectly declares weights? How does it impact us? And that's not to say that the freight forwarder got it wrong. They might have been provided the wrong information.
That's right.
But as you mentioned, if their name is there declaring it, they need to make sure that that information is correct. So
right.
if we start maybe from an import perspective.
Yep.
And
Well, there's two features, Nate, isn't there? There's the road carriage.
Yep.
Well, it's probably three. The handling at the port.
Yes.
And there's also the sea carriage.
Yep.
So a little while back there was the Solus
2016.
rollout. Yep. The Solus rollout to improve the certainty of weights.
Yep.
So that people planning vessels had a much better idea of the weights that were in the containers, so they could better plan the vessels. So we didn't have this issue of
Containers going over, and vessels going over, and
vessels rolling over and being unbalanced, and captains being at risk at sea, and seafarers as well. So that's one issue, and it's not an issue we need to focus on here today, but it certainly is an issue. Was the impact of the reason the solar stuff worldwide went around, and every country was asked to come up with a plan to improve the certainty of weights, so that vessel planners and captains had good understanding of what the weights were on their vessels and where it was. So that's one thing. Obviously, handling it at stevedores. The good news is most of the stevedoring equipment has big ratings, so
more or less they're covered unless it's a disbalance.
An imbalance. You're right, Nathan. Imbalance inside the container, which we can't see, is in a lot of respects one of the most dangerous features. So, would encourage people to ensure
it's loaded evenly.
That's right. It's loaded evenly end to end, so and side to side, so that when it does get picked up by one of our container handlers, that we don't have an imbalance which would potentially throw a machine over, which is extraordinarily dangerous for our operators and our truck drivers.
Yeah, and people in the yard,
people in the environment. Yep. So that is a very important thing. That stability internally to the container.
Yep.
But the other thing I want to talk about today is the impact potentially on road of misdeclared weights. We've had instances, recently, and that's probably one of the reasons why I want to talk about it today.
Yep.
Was people making assumptions, making broad additions, which you come up with wrong numbers. And what impact does it have on us? Well, that's probably one. Well, there's two ways that can go. If they either over declare the weight, where it's actually, let's say it's 20 tonne, they declare 25. On road, that's not going to hurt us at all, provided it's evenly distributed throughout the container. Because we'll have allowed in our loading plan for a 25 tonne container. Other way around, if it's, let's say it's 22 and it's 28 and they declare 22, that potentially could be a problem for us on road. So we've got drivers who are driving with an overloaded truck. That runs a risk of fines, and of course, most importantly, of an accident. Yeah, on road interceptions aren't good for us, so we don't like that. We prefer to stay run our operation legally. So we don't want on road overweights.
No, and the reality is that if we are pulled up by Department of Transport or QPS, we need to be able to declare and say this is what we have on, and this is the weight it is as well.
That's right.
If we are unfortunately involved in an accident, then we need to be able to provide accurate weights. And at some stage throughout that accident review process, the investigation, weights will be determined whether the documentation matches with reality. And if it's not, then look out.
That's right. Then there's issues. When we're going, that's this chain of responsibility thing that we've acted on, advice that the box was 20 tonnes, 22 tonnes. It turned out to be 28. And, if it was overweight and it was heavily imbalanced, for example, which gave rise to an accident. Again, people are looking up the chain. Who caused this? Who didn't notify people of this, or who didn't come up with a different plan? So
what are all the contributing factors?
What are the contributing factors? So to avoid accidents, correct declarations, correct weight declarations are critical, and evenly spaced loads are critical as well.
And so that is, understanding and making sure you have the correct weights of the commodity, but also what's the commodity packaged with as well. Because sometimes people could just rely on, this is my commodity weight, and they look at that packing list, but they're not actually looking at
or
you
their
know,
marketing weight, the weight they're selling.
Sorry, the marketing weight.
The weight they're selling, and that's doesn't allow for packaging, doesn't allow for pallets.
Yep.
Doesn't allow for other dunnage, whatever else might be inside the container to restrain.
Yep. And then the tare weight of the container as well.
Yes, that's
which
right.
you know you're looking at 2 to 4 ton respectively.
Yeah, depending upon the box.
Yeah, depending on the box. So all those contributing factors, and probably the other thing is then looking at the unloading side of things, is you know side loaders are very heavily rated, but it's also that supportive area. Where are you unloading that container, and can those landing legs, can they? Is the ground supporting?
Sufficient,
is it sufficient enough for that heavy container as well?
That's right.
Or are we being misguided by the declaration?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. We may go to a different unloading method if for example, it's a 31 ton box. You may choose not to put it on a side loader.
Yeah,
maybe best done with an unpack in our yard, or alternatively a trailer unpack at the customer's side.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, that probably sums up a little bit about making sure that you understand,
decks right.
You're confident that the weight declaration you provided is 100% correcto. Thanks, guys.
Bye.